Hello world and welcome to Towne Yoga. My name is Amy Towne and we are doing practice 5 out of 10 in the No Pain Challenge. And that's a series of 10 practices that are 10 minutes long that focus on very gentle strength and stretching in a yoga practice to help treat chronic pain or maybe even prevent it. Wouldn't that be great? So just take a moment to clear yourself some space. We're going to start laying on our back to start our practice. And if you have a yoga mat, you can roll that out. If you don't, just find yourself a nice simple space where you can maybe put a towel or a blanket down and come to laying on your back with your knees bent and your feet resting just in front of your hips. And take your time settling down and settling in. As you bring your feet in front of your hips, you can leave your knees pointing up towards the sky or let them fall in towards each other. You can take your palms face up or down by your sides or maybe rest them on your belly. Wherever you'd like to be, to open and just ground for a few breaths, settling in. Letting our low back kind of come heavy onto the mat. And just take a few rounds of inhales and exhales here. Each inhale, just kind of breathe down into your belly, bringing in a lot of air. And each exhale, just let yourself be a little heavy onto your mat. And the work we're going to do in today's practice is going to involve some very subtle movements. So there are going to be times where you're wondering, is this right? Is this wrong? And I just invite you and encourage you to treat it as an exploration. So not as much right or wrong in your movements, but really just noting how they feel, trying a few different things in your body. Because even if you're not doing exactly what I am, you might find a posture that feels great for you or a series that does. And that's gold in the world of pain management. So we're going to start with some of those subtle movements in our pelvic tilts laying here on our mat. So if your knees are together, take a moment to separate them out. And you want your feet about 2 fist width distance apart so that they're the same apartness as the bones at the front of your hips. So you have one line from your heels to your knees to the bones at the front of your hips. And then take your hands and bring them to those bones. They might not be accessible to you, or they might. Kind of depends on your body and the day. But imagine where those hip bones in the front of your body are. And we're going to tilt our pelvis here. So picture taking these bones at the very front of your hips and drawing them up towards your ribs. As you flatten your back down to the mat, just pressing firmly, kind of feeling your low belly engage here, the muscles turn on. And just pause for a moment, pressing down into the mat. Now we're going to tilt our pelvic bowl the opposite way. So these hip points that are drawn up towards your ribs, send them down towards your thighs. You don't lift your hips, they stay heavy. But your lower back will begin to arch. You might have space between your low back and the mat now, or you might not. But feel these hip bones pressing down towards your thighs and your spine arching in the lower portion. Just pause for a moment here. And now we're going to tilt between the two. As you inhale, draw these hip bones up toward your ribs, flattening your back to the mat. As you exhale, send them down towards your thighs as you find a bit of an arch. Inhale and draw back, flattening down to the earth. Exhale, tilt forward, lifting your low back up. And take a few rounds here, just exploring in your body with your breath pace. As you inhale, tilting your pelvis posteriorly to the back. And then tilt your pelvis anteriorly to the front as you exhale. Inhale. And exhale. We're going to turn these into pelvic tilt bridges. The next time you inhale, drawing your hip bones towards your ribs and pressing your back down to the mat. Pause here. Think about your tailbone, the very base of your spine. And we want to scoop your tailbone. So from the very base of your spine, think about lifting up the bottom of your hips. And then one vertebrae at a time, continue to lift your spine away from your mat, sending your hips up towards the sky. And you'll take a few breaths probably to lift up nice and slow, no rush, pausing when you reach the top. And then very slowly, as you exhale, begin to roll down your spine one vertebrae at a time. Lowering all the way back down to your mat from your middle spine and then your lower. When you get to the bottom, press down again, hip points drawn up towards the ribs. And then we'll take the opposite motion in our pelvis. Send your hip points down towards your thighs as you bring a little arch into your lower back. Pausing for a moment here. Inhale, draw your hips to your ribs. And exhale, tuck your tailbone under as you begin to lift up. Thinking like you're lifting beads off of the ground, just one at a time in a string. When you come as high as is comfortable for you, it could be this high, higher, or maybe a lot lower, that's fine. Exhale, lower one bead at a time, back down onto your mat, starting at the top of your spine. Coming all the way to flat, pressing down, engaging your lower abdominals. And then come to an arch in your back. And settle back into neutral. Now we'll take a few windshield wipers. So just bring your heels and your toes out a little bit wider than your hips. If you have a yoga mat, they might be just as wide as your mat. So now your knees are a little bit further apart. You can bring your arms out to a T with your palms face up, or if you don't have as much space, you can bend at your elbows and just rest your hands on top of your ribs. As you exhale, lower your knees over to the right, letting your left hip come up a bit, and you can turn to the right as well. Inhale, back to center. Exhale, lower your knees to the left as your right hip comes up a bit. Inhale, center. And continue to flow at your breath pace as you exhale over to one side. Inhale, center. Exhale to the opposite. Inhale, center. And take a few more rounds at your breath pace. Just exploring a bit here. Maybe take about one more round or so, finding a little evenness in your hips. And then pause with your knees pointed up to the sky and just walk your feet back in so they're in front of your hip bones. And our last pose here is going to be a happy baby. Draw your knees up towards your armpits and take one hand to rest on top of each shin. And we'll start with a little rock side to side just to massage out your low back. If this feels good, you can stay here or return here at any point. If you want to go into a happy baby, find stillness, and then with your knees bent, send the soles of your feet up towards the sky. Reach your hands through the center of your legs, and you can grasp just the front of your shins to start and kind of use your hands to draw your knees down. And then from here, you can rock a little bit. You can extend one leg straight and then the other. So elbows are just inside your knees, typically here. And your feet might point kind of in front of you, or they might be all the way up to the ceiling, somewhere in between. Explore a bit. If you want to go a little deeper into the happy baby posture, you can walk your hands up towards the tops of your ankles, Or take one hand to the outside edge of each shin, as long as you can still relax your head and neck down. And then if you notice your low back lifting a lot, sometimes that doesn't feel good. So try to send your low back towards the base of your mat. And if that doesn't work and it feels good to take the opposite one, listen to your body. And you're just going to pull your hands to your feet, push your feet to your hands if you've chosen this variation. Taking any little happy baby movements that feel good to you. And you can choose to stay here if you like. Maybe you want to go back through the practice again. Or you can release your feet with your knees to your chest before planting them back down to the earth where we started. And we'll end our practice here, my yogis, so you can go back through it or just maybe take a few resting breaths before moving on with your day. I'd love to know how you're enjoying the No Pain series, so please leave a comment on the video or over at my Facebook page so I can check in with progress. I'd love to hear from you. With hands to heart, I'd also like to say, the light in me honors and respects the light in you. Namaste.